The next slide introduces our presenters. Our Chief Executive, Sukh Shamdal, who's also the founder of the company, can't be with us this evening, but presenting instead, or as well, myself, David Forth, Interim Chief Financial Officer. As you can see from here, I'm interim. I joined in March of this year, and I've had 30 years experience, slightly more than that actually, in consumer retail and logistics. I'm a chartered accountant and I qualified in 1981. My colleague Chay Watkins also joined in March. He's come from a brand strategy consultancy where he was developing brand and category listings for large FMC brands and multiple retailers.
Hi guys.
And,
so shall I just give a little bit of an introduction to myself?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I've been with the business for 3 months, really getting under the bonnet of Cake Box as a business and a brand. What I bring with me is business level, brand level, and category level strategy, mainly from FMCG background and a lot of retail as well. Yes, I'll present later on about Cake Box from a marketing and opportunity perspective.
Okay, so in this year we've had, as it says here, we've had another record performance. That's because Cake Box is actually a fast-growing business, and as you see, our revenue 33 million. That's up 51% on the previous year. Gross profit up 16 million, and EBITDA 9 million. And if we, I mean, this means that basically we've managed to go up 50% a year. We've delivered some really quite startlingly good results, which are on the back of opening new stores and of our growing awareness amongst customers of the offering that we have. In operational terms, we opened 31 stores during the year. That takes us to a total number of stores of 185. And since the year end, we've opened another 9 stores. Now, as well as the stores, we've got some kiosks which are to be found in shopping malls and in supermarkets. Adding those 35 kiosks gives us 220 locations where we can sell our products. As you'll see shortly, this leaves us with quite a lot of area in the UK where we can expand into, and we're working to support that expansion. Because the business is growing, we opened a new warehouse in Enfield. Enfield is where our head office and one of our bakeries is, to support that ongoing expansion. Now, this is a franchise business, so we manage the brand, and we make, in fact, everything that the franchisees use except for fresh fruit. So we supply them, the cakes themselves are sponge cakes. We supply them with the sponge. They're cream cakes with sponge on. So we supply the cream, we supply the various toppings and decorations that they've got on them. And importantly, we supply the recipes so that they are consistent across the whole of the business. So franchisee sales, their turnover has gone up 55% in line with ours, meaning that our total retail sales are 66 million. That makes us a 66 million pound brand, which is growth up from 43 million the year before. Also interestingly, our online sales have increased 41% to last year 13 million. Now, this is a significant increase, but I make the point that what we're doing here is we're attracting customers on our webpage, which are then fulfilled through the franchise shops. So it's not like we're taking orders here and sending the cakes from the head office. What this means is that we're able to reach out to people who perhaps wouldn't be walking past our stores. The website has all the pictures and information. The franchisee orders the cake, and they then mostly click and collect. Our like-for-like sales in franchise stores up 12%, and 42 of our franchisees have more than one store, which means that these businesses have been successful. The franchisees are pleased with them, and they've gone out and opened other ones. Also importantly, we've got a strong pipeline of new franchisees looking for store opportunities. This just shows where our stores are at the moment, 185 plus 35. And what you'll see from this is that there's still quite a lot of areas in the UK which we haven't yet expanded into, most notably Scotland, but parts of East Anglia and the southwest, and of course Wales. The coloured blobs, which may not be too clear, the light green one is Bradford in the north, Coventry in the Midlands, and Enfield, which is part of London, in the south. And we service our stores and kiosks from those locations. So in terms of our financial highlights, earnings per share have increased in line with the increase in the business, 44%. We've recommended a dividend, final dividend for this year of 5.1 pence. That comes on top of a 2.5 pence interim dividend. Last year, the final dividend was 3.7. Net assets stand at 16.5 million. Now, this business generates a strong amount of cash, and we have no substantial borrowings. We own freehold all of our properties and all of our distribution assets, except for this warehouse in Enfield. That means that we've got 6.6 million in the bank at the year end. That continues to grow, obviously, during the year. We're showing net cash, which is after the mortgages that we have on our head office and one of our warehouses. If you go to the group income statement on the next page, this gives a bit more detail about that 33 million revenue, about gross profit on that, which is 16 million, shows our administrative costs of 8 million, and that gets to a profit after tax. This is our adjusted profit, if you can stay on this page please, which is 7 million this year, and last year was 4.7 million. The adjustments were all positive this year, whilst we've been tidying up some of the assets in the balance sheet. So this, we believe, makes this into a very attractive business. We've also shown the balance sheet, strong balance sheet. Now on the balance sheet, you'll see that our total assets our current assets have gone up to 12 million from 9.9 year before. We've got some additional liabilities on the balance sheet this year because we now rent a warehouse, so that's created a lease liability. But our retained earnings, which will be available obviously for dividends, have increased from 8.6 million to 12.5. So we believe that's a very strong balance sheet with only 1.1 million of borrowings on it. Now here you'll see that in the year we've generated 5.3 million of cash flow, previous year 4.3, and this again has enabled us to strengthen the business even despite paying out the dividends. We then, if we can, go on to strategic initiatives. That's the next slide, which is a heading, and then I hand you over to Chay to talk about the strategic initiatives. Thank you, Chay.
No problem. Thanks, David. So as David mentioned previously, a really strong year of store openings last year. And the great thing is that there is a really strong pipeline of deposits for new franchisees down. And that's standing at 54 at the moment. And on the backdrop of a very successful year last year, where 31 stores were open, what you see is, and also as well, David has come into the business and really sort of cleared out the pipeline of potential new franchise locations and franchisees to get rid of some that have been laying around for quite a while. So we really have a strong pipeline of 54, which is probably 2 years, just over 2 years worth of growth in terms of the estate. So a really positive base to start from. And also as well, one thing to note is that we have these 3 distribution centres, which are also bakeries. So they're set up as 3 hubs to serve the entire of the UK. And as you can see on that map there, there's so much white space for Cake Box to go after. And that's where we'll be focusing going forward, is the white space. And you can see north there in Scotland that there's no presence for Cake Box. In Wales, we've recently begun opening in countries in other countries other than England. But interestingly, we've started opening outside of what we would call our heartland, and our heartland is typically urban C1, C2 populations, and we've gone into locations such as, I'll give you a couple of examples, St Neots in Cambridgeshire, and been really successful. So that set the blueprint for our store rollout going forward, and our ambition is to reach this white space where we can really grow our business and engage with a new consumer as well. In terms of people, Cake Box has had sort of rapid growth over the past 5 years, definitely. And what we've done is invested significantly in resource, in capability, and really started leveling up ourselves to future-proof ourselves for growth. So a newly created role of Chief Commercial Officer and a new COO, Richard, have joined the business as well recently. Myself, I'm 3 months in, and we have a new IT director who's almost a year in, and also created and professionalized group functions as well. So these professional services such as customer service, learning and development, to make sure our people are well trained and well placed for the future, and also food technical. So we really have, with new legislation coming out, what we've had to do is sort of professionalize the food technical team to rival that of a really big food manufacturer such as Nestle. So we have to have a lot of legislation applies to us given the size and scale of our business. And then IT and procurement functions as well. So we've really placed ourselves, and this is for future growth as well, so it's investing in the future for Cake Box, but we've really sort of embedded those functions into head office and service functions. My area being marketing, so I've spent, as I mentioned, the last 3 months really getting under the bonnet of Cake Box and understanding what needs to happen to drive growth going forward. And the great thing is I'm very clear on what needs to happen, and I've pillared them into 4 key, I call them cylinders of growth, or pillars of growth. And you have brand, what happens with the brand, and that's all about clearing up and being more consistent with our message and appealing to this wider demographic of anyone that celebrates. So a clear enough job to do on the brand. Digital is the next pillar, and I really see this as the biggest pillar of growth for Cake Box, and I'll talk a bit about it in detail on the next slide. But we really need to transform and build out our digital capability, and that's my number 1 job here. So digital is a huge opportunity for us. The third one is in-store. So what do we do to become mission-based in-store and meet those missions of celebrate, of treat, and more importantly, personalize, because what we offer is a personalized service, which is massively on trend, and it has been for the last number of years. What we can offer is a personalized cake on the spot, and we need to be clear in what we offer the consumer, and so they know what they're coming in the store for. And the last one then is providing best-in-class experience. And this is making sure from the cake, the consumers eat the service they get in store, and also the post-service and the follow-up service, because ultimately what we want is to drive a group of brand evangelists who recommend us and review. So those 4 key areas are the key areas that I will be focusing on. And just talking a bit about digital, because I see this as a massive opportunity. As David mentioned previously, the growth we've had in digital online has been incredible. A lot to do with COVID and changing habits, but typically consumers don't shop for cakes online, but that has changed. There's been a paradigm shift in that now. What Cake Box has is a very, very solid foundation in organic web presence. So we turn over a lot of transactions online, purely organic. So what you see on the left is in the bluey purple color is Cake Box's organic presence online versus the competitive set. So we're very strong organically. What we're untapped in is the advertising element. So this is a huge pillar of growth for us. When we professionalize and transform our systems and drive in then this new consumer through paid advertising, there's a lot of people out there searching for cake online. So what we need to do is be there when they're searching and ensure that our advertising strategy is to drive new and incremental business. And I've done some work on that over the last 3 months to set up the scene. And incredibly, we're looking at a return on advertising spend of around £5 to every £1 we invest. So you can see the opportunity there, and it's untapped, as I mentioned, for Cake Box. And this will be where I'll be focusing indefinitely, but for the next 6 to 12 months, to really understand what is the bigger opportunity for paid advertising online. Everyone has a celebration. Everyone has a celebration for different reasons, typically 3 or 4 a year, whether it's inter-family celebrations or religious celebrations. And Cake Box is able to meet the needs of every one of those celebrations. So we have to be there when they're searching. Perfect. I'm just going to run over this slide actually, because it sort of summarizes, a future view of the business. Sales have remained robust post-period end. Obviously, as a board, we recommend we understand that there's massive headwinds in the UK on a global level, but the good thing is Cake Box is quite a resilient business. It was founded in the recession, and it flourished during COVID, and there's no reason why that should change going forward. Everyone has a celebration, and what we find is that when people start rationalizing on their spend, a celebration the competitive set is actually very broad. A lot of people will go to restaurants and they will cut back on that. Some people will revert to going to a supermarket to buy a cake. The celebration stays there. But if you look at pricing in supermarkets now with inflation and everything, for a celebration cake of a basic to good quality, you're talking £15. Average order value for Cake Box is £22. So our plan is to remain that really good value proposition, personalize, and really stand out there when everyone's searching for celebrations to capture the consumer. We continue to increase our geographic presence, and this is about bringing these new consumers in and heading for white spaces throughout the UK, and there's a significant opportunity here. And we aim to drive sort of 50% of our revenue online in the medium to long term, and I see no reason why that isn't the case. We have a very good model of click and collect, and that's a godsend for any online business because it strips out the logistical issues. People want to go and collect their cake. And then finally, the investment in senior leadership and also group functions as well, just better places us for expansion and growth in the future. And that's pretty much it. Over to you for questions.
Thank you.
At what point will the market in the UK get saturated for Cake Box stores?
Well, we expect to open our 200th store this autumn, and actually there's no particular reason why we shouldn't press on, I think, to about 400, but we are well on track. We've had a good store opening record, and we've got a decent pipeline, and as Chay says, we've got plenty of white space to move into. If people, when we extend further north into Scotland, we've got 2 stores in Scotland at the moment. We'd be planning to open a depot up there, which will obviously service more stores.
Excellent. Eggless cakes, but with butter and cream, are clearly not for the vegan market. So what is the core market?
No, I think we're
vegetarians.
We do not claim.
The ethnic Indian community is clearly a target market, looking at geographic coverage.
Yes, I mean, eggless cakes is the DNA of the brand,
Yeah,
and I'm not sure if you've had a chance to taste the Cake Box cake, but eggless is
unfortunately
definitely
not.
not compromised. I think it's an improved version of a cake. What we don't claim to be is vegan. We see the market, and a lot of research have gone into veganism and what do you call flexitarian now. There's a big trend in flexitarians. People tend to eat different diets, different days, and it's all about society of sobriety. We don't claim to be vegan. We don't see the bigger trend being vegan in terms of, becoming a vegan brand. We are overtly celebration cake. By default, eggless, which we believe is a better tasting product. And you are right,
Hmm.
lacto vegetarian market is what the business was founded on. And going forward, eggless will always remain in the brand, but it won't be a forefront message because we see that as it could be something that consumers get a bit confused by. So it'll always remain eggless, but that's not necessarily going to be the message going forward.
You've had a steady growth in the last 5 years, but excuse me, your share price does not show that. Why did you trade at £4 now at £2?
Yeah, that is a fair question. Last year's accounts, despite it being a very good year, there was some transposition errors or some differences between the RNS, the statement to the stock market, and the glossy version of the shares, which of the report and accounts, which was published subsequently. These differences are not particularly large, but they were picked up by a blogger, and that raised doubts about the whole business and whether there were other numbers. And the blogger had made some comments which suggested there might be trouble with cash and so on. Now, there's been a few changes in the business, and very briefly, I've been recruited as an interim CFO because I've got quite a bit of experience in business turnaround and in rescuing things. We've also got a new auditor, and we've got a new internal auditing business. We've got BDO as internal audit. Because of my background, I tend not to believe anything that I'm told. And so we've tended to look very carefully at all the numbers and so on, which we believe will give more confidence in the shares. And I mean, that's really, if you think about it, why we've got the senior team, why we've got the new auditors. Especially nowadays, auditors are a bit reluctant to sign things off unless they've checked them all, and new auditors are especially careful. So we believe that we're in the right place because we're still a strong growth story. And actually, it's not quite on the question, but we've got 6.6 million of cash in the bank. So our progressive dividend policy is not going to be shaken.
Okay, thank you, David. Time for one more, even though we've overrun somewhat. What percentage of revenue profits comes from the initial payment for selling franchise rights as opposed to new franchisees?
That depends on, well, it's not actually the franchise rights. What we do is we fit out and build the stores for the franchisees, and that would be about 10%. It's slightly less than that of our revenue. We make a smaller return on that, but unlike other franchisors, we actually make our money in our sales of the sponge and materials. So this is a relatively inexpensive franchise to set up, which makes it attractive to people. And because it's successful and because it builds well, and because we're careful not to crowd franchises next to each other the way some other franchisors do, it means that they get their returns quite quickly.
Okay. All right, David. All right, Chay, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm sorry we couldn't get any more questions in. Hopefully we can get you back either on a webinar or one of our live events, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of interest in following you guys as we go through 2022. The video will obviously be uploaded onto the website, and we'll send it to you to upload as well once it goes through compliance. So I'll just thank you for this evening. Thanks for the presentation, and good night.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thanks again.
Cheers, David. Cheers.